It's Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. I'm Tanya Harris, and welcome to TMI Daily, your daily roundup of everything people are talking about online, since they're not allowed to talk about it in person. This morning, when asked by reporters if he was kidding about asking his staff to slow down coronavirus testing so that there would be fewer cases, Donald Trump said, quote, "I never kid," which is ironic when you consider what a joke his entire presidency has been. I'm still waiting for Ashton to jump out and tell us we all got punked. During his testimony before Congress, Coronavirus Task Force head Dr. Anthony Fauci said that he was cautiously optimistic that the U.S. will have a COVID-19 vaccine by the end of 2020. If not that, maybe at least a president who admits the virus exists. In a new interview, President Trump said that there will be another stimulus bill, which will be very generous and will be announced in the next couple of weeks. If it's anything like his Tulsa rally, it'll probably be less than he's claiming, or it won't show up at all. Trump's rally today in Arizona was apparently open to people of all ages, even though it was billed as a Students for Trump event. This was a logical decision, as there was clearly no way Trump's staff could find enough students to take tickets who weren't already doing it as part of a TikTok challenge. Earlier today, Mike Pence stumbled while walking up the stairs to Air Force Two on his way to a Wisconsin event. This is where Pence differs most from Trump, who does all of his stumbling at the actual events. Yesterday, Fox News reported that Jimmy Kimmel used the N-word in a Snoop Dogg parody rap in the 90s. They also claimed that his summer vacation from the Jimmy Kimmel Show was forced due to a blackface sketch of him impersonating NBA great Karl Malone from his time on The Man Show. At this time, it's not clear if Fox reported this in order to have him canceled or is vetting him for the 7 p.m. time slot before Tucker Carlson. With Florida's coronavirus cases quadrupling since the state reopened 3 weeks ago, Disney World employees have put together a petition asking Disney not to reopen the theme park in early July. I guess not everyone wants to be a permanent cast member in the Haunted Mansion. Netflix confirms that it has renewed the show Lucifer for a 6th and final season. This is great news for anyone who had the devil making an appearance in their 2020's next catastrophe pool. Michael Keaton is reportedly in talks to reprise his role as Batman in the upcoming DC Flash movie. At 68 years old, think of him as less of a Dark Knight and more of a Silver Fox. Mel Gibson's lawyer called Winona Ryder a liar for her claims that Gibson called her, quote, an oven dodger because of her Jewish heritage. This isn't the first time Mel Gibson has denied something Holocaust-related, and it probably won't be his last. Now, let's send it over to tonight's TMI Daily Cast and Crew Roundtable. Stay safe.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of TMI Daily. I'm Veronica Aiello, and as always, I'm joined by some of our family members from TMI Hollywood. Let's say hello to our online viewers and to those that are listening on one of the multiple podcast streaming platforms that TMI Daily is now on. Let's start with you, Shayna.
Hello, viewers on the multiple platforms. Insta-me, yo.
Joe.
Hi, everyone. For everyone on the podcast, I am wearing a blue shirt today. A blue shirt.
Chris.
Hello. I'm live in my bedroom.
Elizabeth.
Heidi ho.
Becca.
What is up, my peeps?
Emma.
Hey, y'all. Nobody's tipped me yet on Cash App at $sign Emma S. Lieberman, so I just want to let you know there's still plenty of time, plenty of room left in my app.
And Jocelyn.
Hi, everyone. I'm wearing not a sleeveless top today, just for all you audio listeners out there.
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. Over the last 4 months, Joe Biden has seen his national lead over Donald Trump grow from 3 points in mid-March to 9.8% points as of today, according to the Real Clear Politics average of all polls. In state polls, Biden on average is leading in every battleground state except for North Carolina, where he trails Trump by 0.6%. Yet, if you ask most of Biden's detractors, they'll tell you that he's barely left the basement of his home in Delaware. If that's true, would it be fair to argue that Biden is not winning right now as much as Trump is losing? Thoughts? Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think you could argue that because he hasn't come out swinging, so to speak. He is kind of letting Trump hoist himself on his own petard. I hope I said that right. Which is not a terrible strategy, but he's going to have to like make a stand, so to speak. I think once he gets his VP pick sorted out, that's probably when he'll come out and be like, I've got plans for coronavirus, I've got plans for police reform, et cetera, et cetera. At least it's what I want to have happen.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it has to do with they're kind of letting Trump trip over himself. I mean, I don't think the administration's response to everything that's been going on lately has been much of anything, and I think that that's what they're kind of going for. But I also want to be really cautious because 4 years ago we were kind of in the same boat here, and everyone was talking about how much of an advantage Clinton had, and that didn't turn out that same way in November. So. Obviously they talk about him staying in his basement, but he's been doing what we've all been doing. We've all been kind of in our homes and things like that and haven't been going out that much. I think you're going to see things change, especially once the whatever we have for a convention happens. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, and we don't know about that yet. We can discuss that on another show. But I think after that, you're going to see kind of full guns a-blazing. But right now, hey, hang back and let the other side trip.
Okay, Shayna?
I think it's interesting because there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily pro-Biden, but just against Donald Trump and never Trump, which is a big thing, which is what a lot of Republicans are. So I am also hopeful that, that will mean that they'll vote for him and as opposed to voting for Donald Trump and not try to, third party it in some way. And then we end up back where we are now.
Yeah. Okay, Emma?
So first of all, I want to point out that that Biden has released a couple of solid attack ads. Like, it's not like he's doing nothing. There is still a campaign out there. He's still doing some stuff. But also, ultimately, even if he's doing it from his basement, whatever he's doing is working. And yes, a lot can change between now and November, absolutely. But at the end of the day, especially since campaign events all cost money, especially extra money to get everything sanitized and get it COVID ready, why would you spend your war chest on like doing big events and like making big things happen when, as it is, like he's already really far ahead of Trump right now, specifically right now. Not spending money is working for him. Keep doing what's working if it ain't broke,
Yeah, and just like Joe said, we can't get comfortable with these polls yet, or we still have to go out and vote, and I think that's the most important thing. We still have to remember that yes, we did see this with Clinton, but it's so important everybody to go out there and vote in November. So I want to continue on this topic. For the first month into the pandemic, Trump's approval numbers went up at first, and then dipped to its normal average of about 43% approval. After the unrest from the George Floyd murder and the protest afterwards, and Trump's reaction to all of this, his approval has nosedived to levels it hasn't been since December 2017. We have yet to see new numbers after his rally on Saturday or his comments about less testing, meaning less cases of COVID-19. But it's fair to say they're probably not going to go up. So if you were Joe Biden's campaign manager, would you have him start ramping up his campaign in order to contrast Trump? Or would you say less is better and let Trump continue to fumble the coronavirus message while your candidate stays on the sidelines and comments on the mess? What would be your advice if you were Biden's campaign manager? Yes, Becca.
I think I definitely agree with what Emma was saying about how I think it's more to do with Trump is just, I don't know if Biden is already doing anything, and I think he could maybe do a little bit more. Like, I mean, I'm not 100% savvy on absolutely everything, in regards to American politics, but I think my opinion would generally be, you know, maybe do a little bit more just to show your support of groups like Black Lives Matter, to show your support for groups that are trying to make a difference. But I honestly wouldn't go too far with it, because I think you run the risk of then like essentially freaking people out, people that are looking to kind of change their votes and who are considering, maybe I don't go Trump this year. You don't want to seem so extreme that people are then freaked out by what that could possibly be. So I would suggest, my suggestion, I guess, would be do enough to show that you are supporting these groups, do enough to show that you are taking everything seriously, but kind of let him fall on his own sword and fumble his way into losing his average and losing the vote in November. Okay, Joe?
Right now, he knows he's the nominee. Under normal circumstances, in a lot of campaigns where we're sitting at right now, there still might be some opposition going on, which isn't the case. I mean, they pretty much had that kind of set. I would keep doing just what he's doing right now. Put out some attack ads, do things like that. Let Trump show his cards, because I think Trump's going to show his cards. Trump can't just sit around. You've obviously seen from the rally, he just can't sit back and it's not his nature. It's not his style. I think he's going to jump out there, let him show him what he's got, and then put something to counteract it. So I think holding back's a good thing right now. I really do.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's sort of I think the cornered animal argument is he'll keep lashing out because he feels like the wall's closing in a way, like with the rally not going well, the approval ratings down. And I don't think he can't coast forever, but the strategy of Biden kind of hanging back and letting other people sort of poke and prod at Trump so he keeps swiping and failing seems to be working.
Okay. So today, Dr. Fauci said that he feared that we are reaching a point where the country could see considerable spikes in the virus, and this doesn't at all discount a second wave in the fall. Is it possible Joe Biden could ride out this whole election cycle just because it's become pretty obvious that Trump will do anything to do anything to mitigate the problem? Let's take a look at what Trump said about the virus just an hour ago at his Arizona rally. It'll be on screen.
What I said the other night, there's never been anything where they have so many names. I could give you 19 or 20 names for that, right? It's got all different names. Wuhan. Wuhan was catching on. Coronavirus, right? Kung flu, yeah. Kung flu. COVID-19, COVID. I say, what's the 19? COVID-19, some people can't explain what the 19. Give me the COVID-19. I said, that's an odd name. I could give you many, many names. Some people call it the Chinese flu, the China flu, right? They call it the China as opposed to the China. I've never seen anything like it, but here's the story. We are going to be stronger than ever before, and it's going to be soon.
So just so everyone understands, Joe Biden and President Obama did a virtual fundraising event at the same time, and there were 175,000 people watching on Biden's official feed. So if Biden wins, will he have to thank COVID-19 in his victory speech? Elizabeth.
Just from that clip, he sounds like he's hearing about it for the first time, right? Yeah. Like he's just learning what the virus is all of a sudden, that it's just arrived here as of a day ago, when it's been going on since February at the minimum, possibly longer. Oh God, yeah, maybe Biden should be I want to thank God and COVID-19 for this election win, because
I think Biden should clarify why it's called. How does he not know why it's called COVID-19? How is that?
Oh, you mean Trump? You said Biden.
Right. Oh yeah, sorry.
No, Becca.
No, sorry. I mean, how does Trump not know
Yeah.
why it's called COVID-19? How
We've all
is-
known. We're not doctors. We're not paid to deal with any of this. How do we
Yeah.
all know what the 19 means? And he doesn't. Again, at this point in time, we're months into this. It's baffling, and it's and of course all the racist rhetoric.
Well, one thing I noticed, because this is the first time I'm watching this, I didn't watch it earlier today, but I don't know if you guys caught this, but when he said Kung Flu twice, and when he said China virus, did you notice how the audience cheered louder for those two, for those two names? It's incredible. It's wow.
I actually think Kung Flu was suggested by someone in the audience started shouting it, and he was like, "Yes, so. Exactly." And it's like, "No, you idiot."
Joe.
But by the way, did we get the numbers on how many people showed up in Arizona? Was it more? Did we know that?
All I know is it was supposed to be an event for students, and they made it an all ages event because they knew that not enough students, because of the TikTok thing, they knew that a lot of students wouldn't participate. So they were like, it's all ages, everybody can come.
I'm interested to find out more what the numbers were. He knows what the 19 means. He's pandering to his base that probably, I hate to say this, probably doesn't care, or so
he can relate to them. That's exactly what he's doing.
And then it's the same thing again with him. He's totally this campaign making China the enemy, and he's obviously doing that. And the thing is, I'm watching him, and he's doing that stuff, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows who he's talking to. Don't come across that he just doesn't know and that he's an idiot. He knows enough. But he's going to his crowd and he's going to his base to try and make all of these things that are real problems and realistic problems look foolish, and then go, oh, but I'm going to take care of all of it, even though he hasn't taken care of shit since 2019 when this virus started, and that's where the 19 comes from.
And wasn't he praising China for doing a good job with the virus the first 2 months? I mean, but again,
but once the campaign decided that was the enemy, that all changed. So it's all campaign rhetoric.
Chris?
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be able to thank the coronavirus. That might be in poor taste, but he can definitely thank Trump for his win if Joe Biden does end up winning the election in November, because I mean, Trump and his administration and for the last 4 years has basically been digging his own grave. So if he indeed does lose, is going to be by his own actions or lack thereof, especially during the coronavirus and before, to where we could have easily not being in this point of where we are now, just from measures that could have been taken earlier. So but that whole speech is like Joe said, it's like you're pandering. He knows who he's talking to.
Oh yeah,
he
knows the people he's
definitely smarter than people give him credit.
Absolutely.
And it's all keywords, and it's he knows how to target his base. And then doesn't he always try to make it seem like Joe Biden's he's always in bed with China, and then he brings up his son. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous.
It's also one of those things too where he knows how to talk to not only his demographic, but he does talk to Americans, because we as Americans like to have a target to look at. And once it was put on China, he knows he can just keep, bringing up China. And if he knows that basically, if he gives us an enemy to look at, and he makes himself the enemy of that enemy, or who people are going to vote for, the enemy of our enemy. So makes sense.
Yeah. One of the other things he talked about today that I did catch was, a guy that was killed by an illegal immigrant. So the mom was there, and he was praising the mom and said, her son, her extraordinary, and I'm sure he was a wonderful person, nothing against her or her son, but he had to keep saying, killed by an illegal immigrant, killed by me, because again, nobody else murders people, just illegal immigrants. So he went back to his hits, to his, greatest hits. Okay,
sorry, quick side point. 95% of serial killers are white American men.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, technically, he's not wrong, because illegal immigrants have been killing people in this country for a long time, and they're called white people. So, I mean, let's just be if we're gonna be, call a spade, baby.
Since what, 1609 or so? Jamestown? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So there was also something else that I heard that his campaign is saying because he can't, be campaigning right now on the economy because of everything that's happening. He's going back to, the racist remarks, what got his base going, back, a couple years back. So Shayna, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, he didn't pioneer racial resentment. I mean, that was Nixon's whole way that he won back in 68 and then used it again in 72. It is absolutely the way what people do. They speak to the people who feel, angry white people who feel and make them afraid that they're losing, that they're never going to get out because of social and legislative changes. And because of all the new trans law, I'm afraid what that's going to bring, because not only have African-Americans been murdered during the quarantine, but also trans and homosexual people have been murdered in the same way that, Black people have. So it's like, this is going on, like in America in general. And I'm not trying to diverge from anything. I'm saying Joe Biden his message should be inclusivity. The more inclusive that he is, and not being leftist, just inclusive. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like extremist. I'm just saying everybody's welcome here. We're not going to throw you out for any of these things. We'll throw you out because you're a dick. We have a no dick policy. You know what I mean? Like no assholes here. That's our policy. I think if that's how he runs it, I think he's got a better chance of then trying to because that's what the opponent is. They're being divisive. So the only way to get that is to be inclusive. The only way is to pick up everybody, to be the moss and gather everybody who's out, to challenge the people who feel out. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what they're going to have. I mean, that's because those people are impassioned. That's the things that I've seen in both of the rallies that I've watched. Those people are deeply impassioned about him and about his message. And the fact that that person started chanting Kung Flu, I mean, we have to get to a place where it's just like all of us need to stand against that as part of it. You know what I mean? And that's what I think that Joe Biden needs to bring. If he brings that message, I think he'll get everybody. He'll get all the people he needs.
Yeah, I really wish Biden would change his slogan to "No assholes." I like that one, Shayna. That should be the one. The one that I heard the other day, I kind of liked, but I heard it from the Trump rally when we were watching it. It was "Riding with Biden." I didn't totally hate that either because it sounded like. I see shirts that say that. Yeah, they sell shirts that say "Riding with Biden." Little motorcycles and like race cars.
You got to ride that Amtrak with him.
Joe.
By the way, I really like the "I'm with Joe" bumper sticker. I don't know how I would put that on there, but hey. So I just looked it up because I wanted to see what the numbers were for this. So it held 3,000 people and it was full. So they got 3,000 people. The thing that gets me is that it was a church. He was saying that shit in a church.
Yeah.
So, dude, it was a 3,000 seat mega church called the Dream City Church in Phoenix. So it held 3,000 people. I don't know if there was an outside venue or if that was planned.
An overflow lot.
And so apparently they had to make it all ages because they couldn't get 3,000 young people to show up. So that's the update that I got. So I'm passing that along. And a huge church.
Did you guys hear that the church was claiming that they had some cleaning system that could zap and make the virus disappear? Some cleaning system. So then they came out today and they said, no, that's not true. This has never happened. And that was bizarre. Elizabeth, and I'm going to move on.
Yeah, no, it sounded like they were implying that they have. I know a lot of hospitals have sort of like a UV light that can like scan the room and eliminate bacteria and viruses that way. I highly doubt that church has that. But to touch on Shayna's point, I totally agree that he's got to be really inclusive, and it's frustrating to know that there are like people on the left and progressives that are annoyed by that because he's not a perfect candidate. He's not standing exactly where they want him to. And I want to be like, you don't get it. If we don't go this way and try to be more inclusive to a certain degree, we're going to get Trump again. And then God knows if we're going to have any more elections after that, because he's fucking crazy. And we don't even know if he'll actually fucking leave when the time comes. That's, I agree with Bill Maher on very few things. That's one thing I actually like agree with him, like as a concern that he brings up a lot with his guests. And a lot of people have been like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, he's proven that he will walk through a crowd of people and tear gas them for a photo op. I don't think he's above pulling a mini coup or what have you to stay even physically in there. So
well, if he claims it's a state, if he claims the country is still in a state of emergency by the time election comes up, he can cancel the election and move
right
it.
And that's the really scary part. So
that'll just give Pelosi the power once January comes.
Right, but it's a nerve-wracking proposition. So I think, you know, as much as like, you know, I wanted a candidate other than Biden myself, but like he's who we got, and he's trying to do his best, I think, in some ways. And you know, you gotta kind of, it's this, I don't love this system. I don't think any of us really do at the end of the day. This whole only two parties, it does not represent everybody adequately. But we got to work with the system we got right now. We can keep trying to fix it, and that should be the goal for 2024.
Okay, I have one final question about the campaign before we move on to the next segment. Yesterday, Biden's campaign did agree to hold 3 debates with Trump in the fall. First, do you think Trump wants these debates? Actually, I have 2 questions. And who do you think will benefit more from the debates besides us, because we're going to watch them? So, Becca. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry. I don't think Trump probably wants the debates because, I mean, maybe he does. He's pretty narcissistic and egotistical. So maybe he does want them because it means he can be in the limelight and spread his message of dumbassery. But then I think if we kind of go along with how it's been, we were talking earlier about how he's kind of digging his own grave and sort of falling on his own sword, and he's just kind of showing everybody that he really can't deal with things like the BLM movement, and he can't deal with things like coronavirus. I think if he was to go into those debates, he's just going to show even more people and stamp it even harder that he's not competent of even leading an intelligent discussion. And even like the fact that that's how he was using his rally was to talk about none. I mean, granted, that's only a small clip, but can anyone really stand there and say the other 95% of that rally was him talking about, you know, legislation reform and how to move forward in these like, was he? No. So you kind of, he's just going on a campaign to make himself look dumb and less attractive to those people that are still on the fence, that are maybe moving away from him. And like, I'm not so sure about this dude anymore. Look at his face. If he goes out there and he spurts off his bullcrap, he's just going to convince those people even more like, yeah, I think I'm going to move with the person that understands how a country functions and what that job of president actually is, not what Trump wants it to be or what he thinks it is or what he's seen in the movies, but what that job actually is.
Okay, Emma?
I think that Trump thinks he wants the first debate. I do not think he will want debates 2 and 3 after that. I think his entire strategy for debates, without getting too high up on my feminist soapbox right now, this moment, is based in misogyny. And all the tricks that he used while debating Hillary Clinton 4 years ago are not going to come off as well this time. He's not going to be able to call Joe Biden nasty in the same way and have quite the same dog whistle. He's not going to be able to do the whole wrong thing. Like I'm sure he'll try it, but it's not going to come off as well to viewers anymore. And additionally, Joe Biden has a straight talk persona as well. He's going to do it in a much more folksy way. He's going to be much more like, that's malarkey. But he's also got a persona where he can say, hey, that's just bullshit, and like put it in a really good 30-second clip. And it's a skill that Hillary just didn't entirely have. So I don't think the debates are going to work out nearly as well for him as he thinks they are. but they
So you
worked for
don't
him
think
last
he'd
time.
Be able to follow Joe Biden around in a creepy way, the way he did to Hillary, right behind her.
God.
Yeah, because I don't know how he got away with that shit, because that was completely inappropriate, but it happened. Yes, Shayna, and then I'll go to Joe, and we'll finish off the section. Go ahead.
I really agree with you, Emma. I think he really is only going to want the first one. And then I think he's going to realize he's in too deep. But he's definitely going to want the first one because he loves to be like the drunk uncle cocktail party storytelling guy. He has perfected that character, and it's working for him in the rallies. I know that he wants to do his storytelling, rambling, making a political point thing on stage against Joe Biden. I think it'll end up like one of them will end up looking like good versus evil, like your conscience in a cartoon almost, like, you know, the two angel devil kind of a vibe. I think it'll really become very clear because he's not gonna, I agree, all of his tricks are gonna be gone. A lot of them, a lot of the things that he used to separate himself. Because Hillary was a woman, because she had been caught up in a whole bunch of scandals before. Yes, Joe has, but it's the same kind of scandal that he's caught in. So it's like, you want to bring up sexual harassment? You want to bring that up? Okay, let's bring it up. Let's talk about it, Donald. Let's have it out there. You know, what is he going to do with that? He's not going to do that. So it's like, you know.
Okay, Joe, let's finish off this topic with you.
All I got to say is, I just want to see one debate, no earpieces, comedy show of the year. You don't get a wireless earpiece, you gotta go off the cuff. That's the one I want to see, because I will tape that shit. That'll be amazing.
And that's when we all win, right, Joe?
You don't have to write it, you just sit back and relax.
Yeah. Okay, so it's time for today's Just One Question. I'm going to pick some of the topics from the top of the show and ask you one question about that topic. The hashtag Cancel Kimmel is trending on Twitter today after video of Jimmy Kimmel as NBA great Karl Malone surfaced and reports that he did a parody of a Snoop Dogg song, including using the N-word on a radio show back in the mid-90s, came out. Donnie Jr. has been leading the charge against Kimmel, but to his credit, can't believe I just said that, has said repeatedly that he is not calling for him to be fired. He apparently just wants to know why Disney was so quick to fire Roseanne 2 years ago, but are silent about Kimmel. So my question is, do liberals have a different standard when it comes to one of their own? Elizabeth.
Well, I think at least what the difference between Kimmel and Roseanne in this instance was Roseanne was actively currently spewing racist things versus they are things in Kimmel's past that he has seemingly grown out of. I mean, I've never been a fan. I hated The Man Show. I'm slightly calling out someone who I know is watching because they kept telling me it was satire this whole time. And I'm like, how? What was the satire of girls on trampolines? Sorry, but it's all right. We agreed to disagree on that point. But it's, what do you call it? So it's hard to say because it's definitely like, is it a mistake in their past? And I guess how active is it? Because like 30 Rock just got some episodes pulled for instances of blackface, and a lot of people are calling into question like Tina Fey's track record, which when you lay it out is not great. And I'm sort of surprised. So like her stuff on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt with Jane Krakowski's character having been secretly Native American the whole time kind of coasted by. No one seemed to be real ruffled by that, and it's sort of strange. So it's hard to say. There probably is a double standard. I would say it's probably a double standard across, in some cases, gender lines. But at least with very specifically the Roseanne Kimmel thing, is Roseanne was currently actively saying terrible things, and it was in Kimmel's past. Although he took a the Kimmel Karl Malone thing I've seen pop up multiple times, and he has not addressed it until now. So I do think that's a big mistake on his part.
Okay, and I'm I'm a native, Los Angeles person. So I grew up, listening to K-Rock, and all through high school and college, I listened to K-Rock, and Jimmy Kimmel was Jimmy the sports guy. So I've been listening to Jimmy Kimmel since 94, 95. So I do remember, Carl Malone. He also used to do Santa Carl, where it was, kids would call in to talk to Santa Claus, but he would do it in the Carl Malone, voice. And I think back on it, I mean, that was such a long time ago. And yes, I did think it was very funny. I'm not going to lie. I'd be a hypocrite if I, sat here and said, oh, no, I thought that was wrong. I mean, one time I practically crashed the car because I was laughing so hard. But at the same time, yeah, that was in his past. And, Roseanne, she did these things, in the present time so I think there is a difference. There's definitely a difference. Now, can liberals also be hypocritical? Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Yes, Chris.
It's kind of a double standard thing in the sense of, what I mean, because it all depends on, like, sometimes people, these people who are looking for, valor, like, I took down this racist, what I'm saying, like, they pick the people that they, don't really love or follow to cancel. You know what I mean? Like, somebody out there clearly probably never found Tina Fey funny, so like now they're coming after 30 Rock, or they maybe didn't like the show, or they don't like Alec Baldwin, and now they're coming after that show for that reason alone, and stuff like that. And the whole thing with Jimmy Kimmel is like, like Elizabeth said, that was something that he did in the past. He didn't continue it. He's not trying to defend it. You know what I mean? It's like it was a sketch, and I honestly too, like, you got to look at people's track record. Like, look at Jimmy Kimmel's track record. Has he ever even made it seem like that's like he was doing something with ill will? Like, yeah, he did. Yes, it's blackface, and so, like, yeah, that was a bad idea on his part, maybe, what I'm saying, looking back on it. But at the same token, it's not like it's something that he's been trying to press on. Like, it's not like since he's had his show, he's been trying to have blackface sketches on it and like try to be like, well, guys, it's just comedy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and that's the sad thing too, is because when you do set those kind of double standards, then it makes progressive people look bad, because it's like, all right, now y'all picking and choosing who y'all want. Y'all are only going after Republicans. It's like, if you're gonna go after everybody. If you're gonna try to cancel everyone, then cancel everyone, not just the people you like, but everyone. That means because a lot of liberals and stuff like that love Chelsea Handler. That means if she ever made a black joke, which she did, I used to watch her show, then that means y'all got to go back to her old tweets and get her too, because as much as she's been an advocate for racial injustice and shit like that, she's made some jokes. You know what I'm saying? And I know that people want to give her a pass because she dated 50 Cent for a little while, but that don't give her a pass. So if you're gonna come after her, everybody come after everybody.
Yeah. And I just think it's interesting that a lot of the people that were on Twitter today, trying to cancel Kimmel, I go on their profiles just to kind of see, what, who do they follow, what kind of stuff do they post. And a lot of them, were retweeting, Steve Bannon, for example. There was one person that just, loves, and come on, we know about Steve Bannon, and, Trump is, the greatest president in the world. And, he's not a racist, but then they find, this particular, problem with Kimmel. So again, I know sometimes it is political, without a doubt, and also it's politically driven. But but you're right. I totally agree with you, Chris. Emma, and then I'll go to Becca.
I do agree with what everyone said so far as well. Vis-a-vis Roseanne did in the present day, Kimmel did it years and years ago. I think that it's also weird to kind of paint all progressive cancellations with a large brush. I'm totally forgetting what that phrase is right now. You know what I mean?
Same brush. Yes, same brush.
Broad brush.
Broad. Thank you. Whatever. Y'all know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think that, like, first of all, when a liberal does do something awful in the present day, like Louis C.K., he did get canceled. And like, he actually got canceled. Like, he's one of the very few whose careers actually got impacted, and he's still making comedy specials. Like, he's still going out there and performing for money. But also, there's a huge difference between when we point something out about an entertainer who has influence and, changes minds. But there's a difference between pointing at an entertainer and pointing it out and, say, a politician who gets elected by the people to office and can write laws. I'm not trying to excuse anything that Jimmy Kimmel may have done, but I think that there are degrees of severity in what position in which you do it. And liberals calling out, say, conservative politicians who are advocating for terrible laws that will affect millions of people all the time, is not quite equivalent to calling out a liberal comedian who's made some very poorly advised jokes, in addition to everything else.
Okay, I'm going to take one more comment on this topic. Becca.
So I think one of the things that I think is definitely important, especially because of the global and obviously even more in America, the situation at the moment, it's never too late to learn and adjust behavior. And it's never too, with mistakes that are made in regards to race relations, it's never too late. I mean, you can never take back anything you've done. You can never take back anything you've said. But there's nothing, everyone is learning. I've seen some really kind of wholesome posts of people. There was a guy who was, I think it was military, and he was in a wheelchair, and he had a sign saying, "Sorry, I'm late. I had a lot to learn." There are some people that are kind of moving over. Do I think Jimmy Kimmel is radical? No, I don't. Do I think he's made some mistakes because of what used to be acceptable in comedy and what used to be considered as on the edge but still okay? Yeah, I do. But I think if there were previous prejudices, it's never too late to kind of learn your mistakes and say, do you know what, I was wrong in the past and never again, and apologize. And kind of on your point about being hypocritical, I think our liberals hypocritical comes up often with the movie White Chicks. And the fact that I personally think it's wrong to do blackface, but there are people out there that are saying, well, what about the movie White Chicks? It's the Wayans brothers and they're doing whiteface, and isn't that offensive? And it's like, well, no, it's not, because it's totally different. For a start, it's just like the complete opposite end of no one. It
hasn't been used to systemically.
Exactly, like you have the minstrels. There's a show in England called it was acceptable in the 80s, or they do a whole bunch of different ones, and it shows what used to be okay to go on TV, and we had minstrels and stuff still on TV in the 60s and 70s. Like, no one has used whiteface to systematically oppress, make fun of anything. No one has done that to white people. So you can't say it's offensive. That movie is incredibly funny and incredibly well thought out. And the point of them putting on the whiteface is way more than just to make fun of white people. There's a whole movie plot around it, and it's integral to the movie, and it's what the movie is about. And
Now people keep trying to come for Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle for a couple of times where they've done a whiteface character, but it's they're each time they were highlighting hypocrisy,
important points and
larger points, and not like
but when they do it in their stand-up, because both men use it in their stand-up. When they do it in their stand-up, they don't have the face.
Yeah,
they don't have the nose, and it still plays. It still reads. So to me, that's an enhancement to character.
Yeah.
That is adding as an actor or a sketch comedian. That's enhancing the character, and also helping people who have limited imagination be able to see the character a little better.
Exactly.
I actually want to read something from our producer from TMI Hollywood. If you are in comedy, you have done something in your past that you are begging that no one ever finds out now. It's impossible not to evolve from things that at one time weren't offensive. Our first 2 seasons should never be seen by anyone out of context of the time those shows were produced in. So he wanted me to share that with everyone.
Now I want to know what happened in the first 2 seasons.
No, I've said it a million times. Comedy is the genre that gets dated the fastest.
Yep.
What was acceptable 5 years ago is not it. Almost.
Sometimes what was acceptable a few weeks ago is acceptable now, or even funny, or even any of it. You're right. It's my roommate is a stand-up comedian, and she knows better than anyone else how. Like, I'm sure there have been times where she's been on tour, and within the space of a week, she's had to change her set because it's just not funny anymore.
Oh. Okay, so let's move on to Disney, shall we? Disney World staff is circulating a petition asking the Disney company not to reopen the park on July 11th. as the daily cases of coronavirus are 4 times higher than they were 3 weeks ago, prior to the state reopening. California today saw the first time since the beginning of the crisis its daily infection rate rise above 5,000 new cases in one day. Here, downtown Disney is set to reopen on July 9th and the park on the 19th. My question is, should Disney be taking its employees and their families and friends' health into consideration and not reopen until cases decrease significantly? Or is this a case of, if someone doesn't want to work here, there are 10 people lining up for the job, regardless of the virus? Joe.
All right, I'm a big, huge Disneyland fan. Obviously, you look at my background. I was actually discussing this a little bit earlier today with another huge Disneyland fan, and it was very much a both sides of the situation. I mean, you could look at, Shanghai's been open for over a month now, and the cases have been doing fine. Now, granted, China's numbers have all been going down while ours have been going up. At the same time, now Universal out in Florida is open, and they have been doing fine. But of course, they really haven't been having the numbers because just people haven't been going out there. I think the big thing you got to worry about, the number one thing, is where Americans are being stupid, and they're not following the basic rules. Now, I'll tell you right now, I was just at, if you don't know, Universal City Walk here in Hollywood opened, and I went the other day mostly because I was curious. And they have a double temperature check. They don't just check it on your head; they also stick the thing in your ear to double that. And social distancing was everywhere. You had to have a mask. The minute someone took off a mask, there was someone from security there. Granted, there wasn't a lot of people, but they were really kind of on top of it. So I'm kind of on both minds here. I mean, I know that we are still in a huge problem, but also what I was seeing from them was kind of like everything that we've asked them to do, everything that we've asked to do, they were doing and staying on top of it. So, I don't know. I don't know. I want Disneyland open back more than anything. And I think what I've been seeing so far from the parks is the right thing, but we're also being idiots and not wearing our mask and not doing the basic things that we have to do. And that's worrisome.
So what about the workers though, Joe, and this petition that's going around? I mean, like the people, they get a choice whether they want to go or not, but the workers, should they be forced to go back? That's my concern.
Well, from what I've been, again, it's a tough call, but you know what? I mean, I hate to say this, but workers have been going back in other things too. We talked to some people the other day that are going back to their restaurants. Yeah. And they got to do it. And I hate to say this, I really hate to say this, but unemployment runs out the end of next month. And I'm not seeing anybody from the government that looks like they're going to be extending it. So, I mean, it's two minds. I know that they don't want to open in the big app, but at some point or another, it's going to be feast or famine. I hate to say it.
Okay. I want to read an online comment that I'm just looking at right now. Michael Kelly says, the very idea of forcing the country to return to work without providing universal health care is barbaric. And then we have another comment online, Michael Gonzalez, as long as they are enforcing social distancing and making sure people have masks on, it should be okay to open. So, I mean, I think it just goes back to what we've all been saying. It's a personal choice. If you feel safe enough, if you feel like you have to go to a theme park or you want to go to a theme park and you feel like it's safe enough, it's, to each its own, right? I mean, I just, I feel bad for the employees though that are scared to go back. I really do.
I do too. But like it says, if unemployment runs out, what are you going to do?
Right.
Well, sorry.
That's true. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Well, first of all, Disney is not an essential business at all.
Right.
And secondly, this is a corporation that could afford to cover its workers for a duration of time to help them not have to go back to work. And it is a personal choice if you want to go to that theme park. But for so many people, it is not a personal choice if you have to go back to work. And that's deep, as we all have said, it's deeply unfair that the unemployment wouldn't cover it. There's no universal health care for that kind of scenario. And the cruelty of like, oh, well, if you don't want the job, someone else will take it is deeply unfair. Disney already has its own weird fiefdom in Anaheim as regarding employees. They do not pay them, a lot of them, very adequately or effectively. Again, for such, for such a huge profit maker. So this is one where I'm usually on the worker side anyway, but this is a big one where I'm like, strike, throw down those Mickey Mouse ears and tell people, just because you want to come hang out and have a good time, that was the whole frustration with all the protests even a month ago or so. It was I want a business open for someone to serve me. It's not this. We're very bad here in this country about like collective good, and we are individual to a fault, where people are refusing to wear masks because they feel like it's tyranny. That's fucking ridiculous.
Okay, Emma, and then we'll finish off with Shayna. Go ahead, Emma.
Yeah. So I feel like I say this a lot on the show. It's the difference between the legal argument here and the moral argument. Legally, they are technically allowed to call people back. There are 10 people who are lined up behind everyone who doesn't want to take that job. And like, as Joe said, unemployment will run out. That is all technically true. But if you look at the moral argument, at the end of the day, unemployment should be continued. Just because right now it doesn't look like it will doesn't mean that it shouldn't. Like, ideal world, that should absolutely continue to happen. Disney has proven over and over again that it doesn't really care that much about its castmates, so it's not going to do anything to cover their workers. It's not going to give them better insurance. It's not going to pay them more. They're not going to do any of that. And there is no reason that so much as one life should be lost from COVID-19 because people want to ride a roller coaster. It is nuts to me that says that Disney World is going to open. It's not even close to essential. And as for restaurants reopening, they probably shouldn't be either. Like, the fact that other places are reopening doesn't mean that that's also okay. The fact that we've collectively as a country decided, haircuts are fine now, we're bored with COVID, is also nuts. Mm-hmm. It should all be closed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Shayna, did you want to finish off the topic?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Florida, because that's where we're talking about right now. I mean, it's a couple weeks for California, but Florida is one of the 26 states where they have a spike in cases, and hospitalizations as well as deaths are on the rise. So I understand why they're terrified. We live in an epidemic area. We've been working through what it's like to be a hotspot, not in the same way that New York is, but definitely one of the hotspots on the West Coast. To go from a zero or a low like Florida was prior to now being a red state, to now being what we were in March, mm-hmm. Where they're getting 20, 30,000 cases. I mean, it's pretty serious there right now. And on top of it, most of the people who work in these places, who are employed by these places, are people of color. And there are people who are economically less. And we already know, that we have scientific proof that COVID affects African Americans and Latino Americans a lot more. And their death rates are higher. I mean, African Americans make up 13% of the population of America, but 23% of the deaths in America of COVID as of June 5th. I mean, I don't know, that's terrifying. That's terrifying as a number in itself, and if that doesn't want to stop you from going someplace, I don't know what does, I mean, because that's just like, I mean, it does me, because I'm like, okay, I've got a 1 in 4 chance of dying for getting my bananas. That's what that statistic is telling me. 1 in 5 shot of me dying. If it's a 23% chance, then that's 1 in 5.
Yeah.
So okay. I hope it's fun. I hope it's fun. Like my grandma would say, I hope it's fun. Hope you had a good time. Hope it was worth it. Hope it was a good time for everybody. But I really do. If you go and that's what you want to do, and that's your bag, and you're clean about it, and you wear a mask, and you're, wash your hands, and doing everything you can to prevent it, because that's the other thing too. We are going to have to go back to life. We can't live secluded in a bubble forever either. That's not real either,
Okay, so yesterday it was announced that Michael Keaton was in early talks to reprise his role of Batman in the upcoming DC Comics Flash film, Flashpoint. This would be the first time the 68-year-old actor has played the Caped Crusader since 1992's Batman Returns. Over the years, 8 actors have played Batman in live-action films or TV. Lewis G. Wilson and Robert Lowry played him in the 1940s in 2 movie serials. Adam West played the slightly more campy Batman on TV from 1966 to 1968. Keaton was Batman in the 2 Tim Burton directed films, Batman and Batman Returns. Val Kilmer and George Clooney took on the role in the late Joel Schumacher's 2 Batman films. Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy starred Christian Bale, and Ben Affleck has appeared 3 times in the most recent DC films. Robert Pattinson is currently filming Matt Reeves' The Batman, but other than a few still images, we haven't seen anything of his performance yet. So who do you think was the best and worst Batmans and why? Chris. I can't hear you.
Sorry. I think honestly, and I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I think honestly the best Batman was Ben Affleck. I think he fit the description. First of all, you know, of all the Batmans, he fit the description. Christian Bale was okay, but he was. I mean, if we're talking like being true to the character, Ben Affleck is a Hulk of a human being. Batman is like 6'3", 6'4", like 250 pounds, just like a massive crime fighting machine. And Ben Affleck, when he played Batman, he was that guy. Like he was huge. He was, and plus, like he didn't look corny as shit when he was doing the action scenes. Like he looked like he could actually kick ass. You know what I'm saying? And like he wasn't a bad Bruce Wayne either. You know what I mean? Like he had this the savvy, suave kind of look to him, and it wasn't corny at all. And I think the worst Batman would probably be Clooney, because he was a great Bruce because he's George Clooney. He's got the suave, I'm a handsome all day man going on, right? But like that's really all he had going for him as far as putting him in the bat suit. I mean, sure, it probably had a little bit to do with the movie that he was in. I give him credit for that, but like also I just didn't believe him as a crime fighter. Like I wouldn't see him like taking his time out of his day to be like, I'm gonna go fight. Oh, I said night, the Dark Knight. So I just don't see him like fighting crime. He just seemed like he could spend money and hook up with women before he could fight crime.
Danny online, he agrees with you that the worst Batman was George Clooney, and Danny says the best for him was Val Kilmer. Michael Kelly says Adam West is the only Batman. So I'll be reading some comments from online too. Elizabeth.
Well, I think your first Batman is your favorite Batman. Maybe not. I'll always root for Michael Keaton. I like him a lot as Batman because I couldn't put my finger on why, but then I read a point online that someone pointed out he walks that line between, you'd have to be kind of crazy to do what Batman does. It's like you go from rich playboy to dressing up as this Bat character and fighting crime, and he kind of walks that line really well between being relatively smooth in everyday situations and then being a tough crime fighter. Although he's also tied a little bit with me with Adam West, because I do love the campy Batman, especially the campy Batman movie where he's running around with the bomb and then he goes to throw it over the side and there's like people on one side and baby ducks on another and he can't throw it in the water. It's the funniest thing in the world. It's one of the best scenes in the whole movie. And worst is definitely George Clooney. Like Chris said, he was a good Bruce Wayne because he's totally swapped that way, but just an awful actual Batman.
Okay, Emma.
So I think any analysis of this has to understand that Batman is a ridiculous Mary Sue of a character to begin with. The idea that he's like the perfect guy, he's got the muscles and the looks and the money, he gets all the girls, but can also beat up criminals because he's like what? Like he's not part bat, I know that. But like because he dresses up like a bat because he watches bats kill his parents, that's ridiculous.
Hey,
Batman. Hands down. He's Adam West. He recognizes that this is an absurd character.
No.
And no, I'm not done yet, Chris. So Adam West is the best Batman because he recognizes that this is an absurd character. And this is going to be the unpopular opinion. The worst Batman is all of the others because they took him too seriously. All of them.
Okay. Shayna?
I love that answer, Emma. I would say the best Batman for me was Christian Bale. I loved what he did. I thought it was really great because I think you either, to be the rich playboy, Elizabeth, to go along with what you're saying, you either have to be that or really broken, which I think he played very well. That, you know, he was just this broken man who had a lot of money and, you know, swag and wanted to do something. And this was like his independent way to do something. And I kind of believe that he would just be like, I'm just going to do this shit. And now I'm done doing this shit and I'm going to go. And for me, it was Ben Affleck. I'm sorry, Chris. He was my least, even below Clooney, because I know. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. But he really was, because I was like, you can't put on a funny voice and just act like, I'm being serious and imitating Christian Bale. That's what I felt like he was doing the whole time. I felt like he was imitating Christian Bale's Batman the whole time I watched him in Justice League. I was like, did you just watch this and make up a character on that? So I'm sorry, Chris. Maybe I'll try again and I will take your notes and look at it differently.
Just watch the fight scene when he goes into the warehouse and beats the shit out of 4 levels of thugs. That is the most amazing Batman fight scene that's ever been on screen.
No, that was good.
No, it wasn't good. It was fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, it was great. The stunt guy did a great job. He did really good.
How dare you?
Ben Affleck acting though. There was some Ben Affleck acting. It was a stunt guy kicking butt. Sorry.
How dare you?
I'm going to read another comment from online. Michael says, Jeffrey Dean Morgan would have been great as Thomas Wayne / Batman for a Flashpoint story.
Yeah.
Becca, and then we'll finish off with you, Joe. Go ahead, Becca.
In my defense, in my lifespan, I only know 3 of the Batmans. My first was Michael Keaton. My first was Michael Keaton, and then Christian Bale, and then Affleck. In regards to story, which is what I'm going to base it on, I do love the Dark Knight series. I think you see this amazingness of, yes, he is this rich playboy, and yes, he does have all the money and the ladies and probably all of the STDs, but he actually like tries to go through Kristen like that. He kind of goes through and sort of tries to find himself, and I really like that. I think that's really cool. I have a massive crush on Ben Affleck because he's just this big hunk of deliciousness that I just can't get over. And then I have a tie to the Michael Keaton movies because one of my acting school teachers, shout out to Amir Karangi, was in the scene where Jack Nicholson goes through the museum and spray paints everything, and then the police come in, and one of my acting teachers is like a speaking part in that movie, so I'm slightly attached to that. I am not looking forward to Robert Pattinson playing Batman because all I can think about is him in Twilight. I know he has done other movies. I know.
Gotta let it go. It was 10 years ago.
I know, huh?
It was 10 years ago. You gotta let it go.
Let the
man move on.
I can't let go of the glittery face. It's just, I can't.
It's not his fault.
This is my issue, Elizabeth. This is my issue, is that, getting serious. This is my issue, is that his character in Twilight is also this life-saving, amazing, superhuman vampire man who's also very hurt and disturbed and broken, and he plays the entire movie like this. And I don't want to watch Batman do that. I want to watch Batman have some emotion and go and drive, and that is not going to happen if all I'm looking at is Robert Pattinson's admittedly very well chiseled face do this. I just can't do it.
I would pay a lot of money to watch you do that, though.
Yeah.
Huh?
I pay a lot of money to watch you do that, though.
Oh my gosh, we should have a Batman off.
Okay, and Joe.
My favorite is Michael Keaton. My reasoning's a little bit different. I mean, I love Adam West, the campy Batman. I mean, that's so much fun and exciting, and you can talk about Christian Bale and these other guys, but one of the big points about Batman is that it's just like we always make fun of Superman because Clark Kent is just Superman with glasses on and nobody knows. The whole idea of Batman is the fact that nobody knows Bruce Wayne is Batman, And Michael Keaton does that to the best out of all the Batman, because when you see Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, you're like, there's no way in hell this guy is like jumping off of buildings and things like that when they look at him. And, you know, and he said, the original, you talked about the serials were so bad that they didn't have a Batmobile. And so Batman and Robin used Bruce Wayne's car, which was a convertible, but Bruce Wayne drove it with the top down and Batman drove it with the top up, and nobody figured it out.
That's
That's how kind of crazy that was.
Oh
So,
my
and I
God.
mean, like Adam West, he talked the exact same way as both. And it's like, come on, you guys know. But Michael Keaton, you saw Bruce Wayne and you're like, nah, there's no way that dude is like the Dark Knight. And that's part of what was like, I think that to the original comic, I think to me, Keaton is like the closest to that, you know, the 70s and 80s comics and 90s comics that I would read in the comic book shops. So, and then of course my least favorite is also Clooney, only because, like you said, Clooney's a great Bruce Wayne, but Clooney is just totally fish out of water as Batman, which is weird because he's such a good actor, but he totally is not there. And also, I don't need to see your nipples, even if they are fake bat nipples.
That's not his fault.
You know, Joel Schumacher. I was going to do Joel Schumacher. I'm sorry you passed away, sir. You know, Godspeed and all, but the nipples, no.
Okay. Well, with that being said, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.